import of certain jute products and ropes from Bangladesh through all land routes with immediate effect amid strained relations between the two countries. However, according to a notification of the Directorate General of Foreign Trade or DGFT, these imports are allowed through the Nhava Sheva Seaport. Remember, similar curbs were also put in place in the month of May and later in June this year. So what impact will this have on India's jute industry? To discuss exactly this, we are now joined by Mr. Raghuvendra Gupta, Chairperson of Indian Jute Mills Association. Mr. Gupta, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us here on ET Now. First up, if you can tell us what is the rationale behind imposing such restrictions? Is it just constrained relations between India and Bangladesh, or is there some more to this news piece?
No, so the Indian jute industry has been plagued by subsidized imports from Bangladesh, and the Indian jute industry has made several representations over the last many years that these subsidized imports should be restricted. And IJMA, the Jute Mill Association, has gone ahead and filed cases of anti-dumping and countervailing duties also to be imposed on Bangladesh. However, in spite of these duties coming in place, yet there were many exemptions, and these subsidized imports continued to flood the Indian markets, and the Indian jute industry was at a loss in their own domestic marketplace. So
Okay.
this is a very, very welcome move from the government that these restrictions have come in place through the land route, and the only option now available is the Nhava Sheva Seaport route.
Okay, so why is there such an exemption? I mean, if since you are telling us that there were problems with respect to importing and that anti-dumping was the real reason, if you can tell us why has the Nhava Sheva port been exempted from this?
Nhava Sheva port has been exempted, I think, because of some issues in the bilateral treaty between the two countries. I think blanket ban on imports would have created some issues.
Okay, and how much were we importing from Bangladesh earlier, and now because of these restrictions, how much is it expected to come down by, given that there is an exemption?
The quantum of imports per year of jute products was in the region of 1,20,000 metric ton, which is almost 10% of India's production. And with these restrictions in place for 25-26, we expect the imports to come down to below 40,000 metric ton.
Okay, so and since you're saying that these restrictions are expected to remain in place for quite some time, do you expect supply in the domestic market to fall and consequent increase in jute prices in the domestic market? Is that a possibility?
Yes, over since the notification has been issued, we have already seen resurgence in prices both in the raw jute space as well as in the jute product space, and especially it is a huge boost for the MSME sector of the jute industry, which is the yarn and twine mills. So there are close to 24 such units in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana which were not being able to compete against the cheaper subsidized imports. Now, with this import restriction, these units are seeing a bit of revival.
Okay. That's as far as demand and pricing is concerned. But Mr. Gupta, since we have you with us, I also wanted your thoughts on the tariff restrictions, and if at all tariffs were to be levied at 50% on India. I believe US and Europe are major destinations for Indian-made jute products. What kind of impact will that have on jute exports from India then?
Uh, the quantum of exports to US is quite insignificant for the Indian jute industry. Only about 2 to 3% of our production goes to United States. So the imposition of tariff is likely not to hurt the Indian jute industry much.
Understood. And how is the domestic demand environment then?
The domestic demand for this current year is robust, and the government of India, the food department, which are our biggest buyers, their requirement has already been placed for the Kharif season 25-26, and it is in line with the expected procurement.
Okay, so that's as far as domestic demand is concerned. But I also understand that production has been on the lower side over the last few years. Jute production in India. What is the government doing to ramp up this production?
So the government has come out with a jute eye care scheme where they are handholding the farmers with supplies of certified seeds, better agronomy practices, and some chemical solutions as far as the jute retting process goes. So government has put in these schemes. However, the implementation of schemes on a large scale manner, which is around 5 lakh hectares of jute growing area, is minimal, and it is covering only about 10 to 15% of the cultivated area. So we expect this program to be extended in a more robust manner. And with these initiatives, we expect the crop revival in the coming years.
Okay, so that's as far as production is concerned. Mr. Gupta, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us here on ET Now and helping us understand what the demand-supply equation looks like in the domestic jute market. Thanks so much for joining us today. But shifting